Hello, my name is Vincent Cruz Lopez, and I'll be doing Chapter 8 breakdown of smartest kids in the world and how they got that way. And who? Well, first of all, we gotta start off with who. Amanda Ripley's target audience is a very specific one, at least, and for me, is that Amanda Ripley's target audience in this chapter are actually public speakers wanting to advocate for education reforms in the United States. More in depth, I mean by someone who can write more persuasive writing. And my target audience today is going to be Mr. Bowen. Why both of them? Because Mr. Bowen, at least for me, he is a very persuasive writer, and he is a person who is often persuaded with rhetorical writing. So I feel like this chapter really emphasizes that, since it's sort of in a way trying to convince you of an idea. So let's get started. So, a girl named Kim, crying from what appeared to be in the winter nights. It was typical for students who wanted to study abroad, the symptoms of a seasonal depression. Viewing the passing scenes of children as young as second graders walking to their homes, her heart panging with jealousy. What does it mean to live with that kind of freedom? When Kim and Amanda Ripley met, she seemed less hesitant than usual, mentioning plans on moving to a virtual space rather than returning as the old Kim back at Sallisaw High School. Soon after dinner was done, she left, paddling away on her bicycle, just like a real Finn would. And soon after, Ripley met with Kim's teacher, Stara, wanting to interview her as a Finnish high school teacher. The Finnish test on a gruesome scale, staggering exams lasting up to 50 hours upon completion. However, tests such as the SET and SAT are not as proctored as the tests in Finland. Teachers from the States are also friendlier, a more congenial approach, in contrast to German teachers, where little is known. Many of the countries with high PISA scores tend to be homogeneous societies, a society with similar ideals on vast issues. The topic of our diversity is often brought upon in discussions, with the United States often aligning diversity with race. Oftentimes, diversity inside the states can be a gruesome truth. African American students were coerced into a purpose. School is not worth it. But on the other side, Hispanic students scored above African Americans, but just below the white people. But Asians, on the other hand, scored the highest out of all on the PISA exam. When parents find a method to finesse, or let's say find a cheat code into the system, when parents find a method to finesse the system, it is unconsciously encouraging a segregated system. The system under the United States continues to fuel the problems once hard, even harder to resolve. Singapore, on the other hand, they were diverse in both ethnicities and religious beliefs, but their scores were the highest of all. However, this was during a period in time where Singapore was ruled under an authoritarian regime. Therefore, the system did not encourage segregation, but when there was a clear line between the best performers over the worst, parents oftentimes start to segregate. For Onion, a teacher has spoken in a way that Ripley has not heard before. Empathy can damage rigor. But the debate whether our backgrounds matter or not persists. A study at random selected students who were deemed with potential, and teachers' behavior actually shifted towards those likable ones. Something to consider in Finland, everyone, and I mean everyone, was at least considered or sent into a special education class, not from any permanent disability, but that they were not to fall behind. A teacher who worried more about the background of her students actually performed worse in reading than when the students first entered the classroom. As the teacher quotes, "You should start to select your teachers more carefully and motivate them more. One motivation is money. Respect is another. Punishing is never a good way to deal with schools." Finnish schools did not publicize test scores, but a teacher would post them on a website. reassuring the students' parents that test scores still mattered. PISA data affirmed that private nor public education really mattered. It was all about how the system is structured. The importance of rigor will not be found in the United States, but in the deep ends in the South Korea's rigorous hagwons. And one thing I'm really fascinated about this chapter is its huge emphasis on diversity, on Finland's protocol to test taking, and how sometimes diversity works better in other countries than in others. And it leads me back to the most important part of this book is its analyzation of diversity in the United States. Like I mentioned before, the system under the United States continues to feel the problems once hard, even harder to resolve. One thing to consider that schools are now more segregated than they were before the Brown v. Board of Education. Once parents start finding a way to finesse a system, they will use that to their advantage and separate them into an even more exclusive society that other parents simply cannot afford. As a person who has never experienced any private education or any sort of education where that needs to be funded, I can say that these are real differences that not only impact us in the short run, but they affect college, they affect our future, and only it is up to us to desegregate that system and make this a fair game for everyone involved. And with that, I leave you a question to all the audience watching this. How should we, as a dominant, especially in Rancho San Juan, a school where it is dominantly homogeneous Hispanic, how should we Hispanics encourage diversity at the local level, such as us Rancho, our city, even our county, because all of these things matter. And at the end of the day, when we remain at a certain group and not expand ourselves to diversity, the consequences can be grave. And with that, thank you for your time.